Okay, we got a doozy. All right. And I don't know how what approach we're going to take. I think I mentioned in the shiur description that we might have to make recourse to meforshim sooner than later. You'll soon see why. Well, let's see what happens. Okay, so this is Mishlei 24, pasukim 3 and 4. Okay, so it says, "B'chochmah yibane bayis uvisvuna yiskonan uvadas chadarim yimalu kol hon yakar v'naim."
So with wisdom, you will build a house.
Yep.
House will be built.
Yeah, house will be built. A house will be built.
And with understanding.
Yiskonan is a hard one.
It will be founded.
It will be founded is good. Yeah, it will be founded. I was established. I think actually I like established better, and the only reason I like established better is because founded. I feel like I would reserve that word for something with yud samach daled, like you sowed. You know.
Here I like it better because it's a house and it's the foundation of the house.
That's also true. Okay, so let's see. I'll do both. Yeah. Also, like the Cain. Like this comes from. Conan is related to Cain, which is like a basis. Which is also why we say, or like Cain is like true, established, you know. Uvadas chadarim yimalu kol hon yakar v'naim.
And with Daas.
Yeah, knowledge.
In rooms.
Yeah, chadarim.
Chadarim
is rooms, but it doesn't say in rooms.
It
doesn't say bi chadarim.
The rooms.
Rooms.
Yimalu. It will be fulfilled.
Yeah, not fulfilled, but
full.
Yeah.
Rooms will be
Yimalu.
I didn't get to that part.
Yeah.
Rooms
will be filled. The at the end is plural, and chadarim is plural.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now we did get to that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Kol hon yakar v'naim.
All precious, nice wealth.
Precious.
I don't know. Nice.
Yeah, naim. Yeah, let's say pleasing. Pleasing wealth.
Like Zenaim.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. All right. So that's the straight translation. Okay. Sadigon just tweaks it a bit. There's no mitzvah tzion on this. Sadigon just says b'chochmah yivnu habatim. So he puts it on the people, right? Not on the house being built. So he says with wisdom they will build houses. Uvitfuna yiskonanu. I think that means and with understanding. Although I don't know Yiskona. Yeah, it is reflexive though, so I don't know.
Yibanu even be Yibanu also.
That might be also, yeah, I'm not sure. I have no idea. I have no idea what Sadigon's doing. And then Naim, he just says is so Kafich gives the Arabic word which Shishbo Hanav Nachas Labalav means that it provides in pleasure and enjoyment for its owners. Yeah, so I'm just going to type that there. So Naim, so pleasing means it provides enjoyment, pleasure and enjoyment, I guess, and enjoyment for its owners. Okay, and then Targum, I always forget to look at Targum ahead of time. Chochmah yimis b'nei vesa uvivuna mitakein. So mitakein is also an interesting thing. I don't know enough about the Aramaic. I mean, we would say mitakein is like to like set up, right? Like to or to fix, but I don't think it means fix here. But like to make like uvidiasa kaitone mismalian kol mazala yakira uvasima. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that this is just straight translations. Yeah. And I pointed this out before, but I think first time I saw mazel, I was like luck, and then I realized no, the word fortune also in English means like mazel and wealth. We use the term fortune, so I guess that was back in the Aramaic. Okay, fine. So assume that's the same. Yeah. All right. Then we get art scroll. Through wisdom, a house is built, and it is established through understanding, and through knowledge, its chambers become filled with all dear and pleasant treasures. So they say dear. Okay. I think I like precious better. Living Knox says the intention. Oh, sorry. That is from tonight's pasuk. I have copied the wrong one. All right. We don't know what the Living Knox says. Alter says through wisdom, a house is built, and through discernment, it is firm founded. Discernment. If Isaac were here, that's what he would say is the way to translate Tevunah, because that's his favorite translation, is firm founded. Okay. And through knowledge
What
rooms,
translation?
what was it?
What translation?
Discernment.
Discernment.
Yeah, I think our scroll also often likes discernment. And I think the only thing going for it for discernment, discernment means to like differentiate, and like having been this or being that, fits in better with discernment. Okay, and through knowledge, its rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant wealth. And I copied Alter's commentary here. I don't know if this adds anything, but it's a very Alter, so I wanted to read it. In this verse, that the poet diverges from the prevalent pattern of neat semantic parallelism between the two halves of the line, which is emphatically evident in the three preceding lines, to stipulate, in a little surprise, with what the rooms of houses are filled. No, because it does. You've got strict parallelism going for all these other things, and then it breaks from it at the end. Okay, like I don't know, whatever. All right, I don't know what he's getting at from that. All right, so we've got these. Oops. Okay, now one little wrinkle already before we even start the questions is I'm like 100% certain that these pasukim are meant to recall another set of pasukim in chapter 3. Okay, so not that we're going to necessarily work on both at the same time, but I think he's assuming that we've read this already. So let's just do this one also. So this is Mishlei 3, 19 and 20. Hashem b'chochmah yasad aretz konin shemayim b'tevunah b'dato tehomos nivkau u'shchachim yirafu utal. Right. Okay. So you'll see. Hashem b'chochmah yasad aretz.
Hashem with
Wisdom
founded
the earth. Okay. Konin shemayim b'tevunah.
He established the heavens with discernment.
Yep, heavens. We'll keep it parallel with that understanding. B'da'ato to okay, and then with
his knowledge, the
his
depths
knowledge.
were
Yeah,
it's like split.
yeah, split. Let's say cleaved. Okay. Shchakim is a weird word.
And the clouds drip. Too.
Yeah, so shchakim clouds. I know our scroll loves translating as the highest heavens, but I actually haven't looked it up. Let's just see what the BDB says. He says Gimel Yotes 20. I mean shchakim. Waiting. Oh, clouds. Yeah, you're right. Are you getting that from a specific context, or you just knew the word? Okay, fine. Clouds.
I knew it.
And the and clouds. How do you translate yirafu?
Drip.
Yeah, drip. I think drip with dew. Yeah. Okay. So you agree with me that this is clearly like the same thing, right? Because you have the earth is the parallel to the house, right? I know the words are different, right? But he's building the house, which is the earth, with wisdom. He's establishing the heavens with understanding, just like we established the house with wisdom, and then the wealth is what the heavens drip with. Okay, so I think the best way to do this is like keep this in the back of our mind, because presumably it is easier to understand Chochmah, Bina, and Daas in reference to human beings than to understand in reference to Hashem. But we might be surprised and realize that we have to do both at the same time. Okay.
Can you
yeah.
copy to keep it in the back of my photos?
Yeah, Yaakov.
Isn't this extremely obvious?
He stole your question.
This is like straight up Mishlei. Yeah, wisdom works; it gets successful results.
Okay, so that question points to the fact that I think the chiddush is going to lie in the we have to discern, right? The chiddush is going to lie in the nuances, right? Yeah. But you're right. The overall message is I'm going to challenge you. Okay. And I wish I had the excerpt on my computer. I don't think I do, but I'll see if I can remember bringing it in. So in Alter's translation of Mishlei, he has like a historical introduction. And one of the things that he made me realize, again, trusting his scholarship, is that he said, in the ancient world, in the audience that Shlomo was writing to, it was not a widely accepted thing that you can make yourself rich or become poor. It was, what was it? Yeah, it was either an astrological determinism, or it was like the gods dictate your fate. And so the notion I believe he, and don't quote me on this because I have to check it up again. I believe he said that there's a lot, they call this wisdom literature, right? And we've even seen that there's parallels between this wisdom literature and Egyptian wisdom literature, and there are other societies as well. But I think he said one of the hallmarks of Mishlei was this notion that you could become wealthy through Chochmah.
Of course.
See, but this is exactly the point that I'm saying is a chiddush.
That's a chiddush to become.
Okay, were you listening to any of the first part? Let me repeat it again. Okay, I said in the ancient world, it was believed that you were either born destined to be rich or born destined to be poor, or that the gods just meted out wealth and poverty to you. So, and I'll tell you one place where this was. I can't bring a ride from this either, but I remember when I went to China when I was 13 with my grandfather, and my grandfather was not didn't practice any Chinese religion or anything like that, but he is a product of thousands and thousands of years of Chinese culture. We saw poor people begging, and I was a kid, he didn't want me giving money to them because he said if they're poor, then that means that they're supposed to be poor, again, this is not a raya, but I've always kind of suspected, China is China's famous for a lot of things, but China is also famous, I think, for not having charity in its thing. Yeah, I remember seeing a list once of American companies that have donated more than the entire country of China, so what I'm saying is that it was not an obvious thing in the ancient world that you could become rich through Chochmah, and that's why there's so many pasukim in Mishlei about becoming rich and successful through Chochmah, and that was a chiddush. So I think that again, for us, it's not a chiddush, and therefore we should mind this for other ideas. But I wouldn't be so quick to say that this wasn't a chiddush for Shlomo's audience. Yeah.
Wait. So that's my question. In ancient world, I can see how that's not a chiddush. But in Judaism, do we believe that? Even in the ancient world, do we believe that?
No, but he was writing to an audience, that was still in ancient times.
Who is his audience? Everyone, or just?
Well, I mean, okay, so there's he was obviously writing this for generations, but he was writing this for the it had to be written at the very least for the people who were around at the time.
Yeah, I know, but
right.
Is that for not exclusive to Jews, or does it extend to?
So it's a good question.
Because if it's exclusive to Jews, then it doesn't apply.
It does. Jews have these beliefs also. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Have you seen how long it takes to get bad beliefs out of Jews? For example, right? The question that you just asked me, I would filter it through another example, which is if you saw a pasuk, let's say in Yeshayahu or Yirmiyahu or that said, "Hey guys, don't worship avodah zarah," right? Then would you say, well, this is clearly meant for non-Jews because for Jews this is obvious?
No, but I feel like avodah is a little bit different than because our entire origin of our belief system is through Chochmah, and why wouldn't we use Chochmah in means of getting wealth? Why?
Point to me one pasuk in Torah that says you can make Chochmah through wealth through Chochmah.
Do you need a person to tell you that?
Yes, you do. That's what I'm saying. This was a finish. I gotta see if I can find that altar thing. But the main point I'm making to you is more important than this idea, which is that cultures take an extremely long time to change. And if what Alter is saying is true, and again, I'm kind of relying on his scholarship because he's a scholar, right? then this was a big push that Shlomo was trying to make in the Jewish people, and showing them how to use Chochmah to make wealth, and so look, the Rambam even had to talk against this, and the Rambam was thousands of years later saying that don't think that because the majority of Jews believe that if they were born under a certain star, then they would be poor. If they're born in another star, they'd be rich. Even though the Torah is rife with objections to avodah zarah and astrology.
He says that. He actually says that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, now the Rambam.
That's right.
Okay.
Because it's.
Yeah, I'll show it to you. So you don't have to take. Don't take my word for it. No, don't take my word for it.
I want to.
No.
I like believing in authority.
No, right. This is the
security.
The Rambam in Hilchos Avodah Zarah v'Chukos HaGoyim in Actually, sorry, it's in Tshuva. It's in Tshuva. In 5, Al Yavor b'machshavtecha davar zeh she'omrim tipshei ha'umos v'rov golmi b'nei Yisrael. Don't let this thought enter into your mind that is said by the majority. Sorry, by the fools of the Gentile of the nations and the majority of the underdeveloped Jews. Shakadosh Baruch Hu gozer ahad mitchilas briyaso lios tzaddik or Rasha, that God decrees upon a person to be a tzaddik or a Rasha. Eina davar kain. This is not true. Ela kol adam v'adam roy lios tzaddik. Oh, so here's just talking about Deos, but he says in Shemona Prakim. Then he talks about the circumstances as well. Okay, anyway. All right, so back to our thing. Yeah, Yaakov.
What does it mean the house is? What does it mean the house is built through Chochmah? Does it mean like the architectural blueprint? Does it mean, like,
Okay.
the
So
craftsmanship?
what is the bias in this context?
It's not so dark, yeah.
Okay, that's probably true also. Okay, and what does it mean that it's built through Chochmah? Okay, I'm gonna just get out the main questions here because I don't think we need to. I think we asked them implicitly already, which is what are Chochmah, Tevunah, the Daas, right? That's going to be the main question, I think, right? Yeah, that's why I'm a little intimidated by these pasukim because, like, these are. Oh, I got to read to you a thing.
Sounds very Chabad.
Well, that's where Chabad got their name. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, right. Yeah, I would say Chabad sounds like this, not the other. Right? Yeah. Because I think this came a little bit before Chabad. Yeah.
What is this referring to?
What is what?
He said this is like
Because Chabad is an acronym for Chochmah, Bina, and Das.
Okay,
Yeah, right. Because that was the intellectual Hasidic movement as opposed to the other ones at the time. Okay. So So what does it mean to build your house with Chochmah? Okay. Yeah.
What does precious and pleasing wealth mean?
Yeah. What?
Just stam.
What does Hon Yakar V'Naim mean as opposed to Stam wealth? Yeah.
And what's the metaphor of filling rooms with them?
Yeah. What? Okay. So you're assuming it's a metaphor?
Or
Plus
what's
an answer.
what are the rooms in the context?
Yeah. Okay. Right. So what does it mean to fill your rooms with them? Yeah.
Was the audience.
Yeah. Hold on just a second here. Yeah. Who is the audience? And I think we do also have to ask what is the practical implication, because if the practical implication is just get Chochmah, then that's a little broad. But if it's more specific, for example, I'm just gonna throw this out, not to give a full idea, but let's say the Havamina is that you should get Das and then Tevunah and then Chochmah, then that's why he would have to say this. So what is the practical application beyond get Chabad? Yeah. And then there's one more question. Oh yeah. So you asked, and you also kind of asked, what is the derech nister, right? What is the allegorical interpretation? But I want to make sure that we understand this in a literal way also. Yeah, Yaakov?
What is the second pasuk of the first? I mean, I guess I'm kind of interpreting it here, but whatever Chochmah is used to build a house, like architecture or craftsmanship or planning and designing, that's not the same type of Chochmah that's used to fill rooms with wealth. Taking a certain understanding of what that means to fill with wealth.
Right. Well, the pasuk is not saying it's using Chochmah to fill it with wealth, right? It's saying it's Das. Yeah, right.
I'm saying either way it was.
Okay. So
how are they related?
All right. So let's ask. Let's ask this question. Let's ask it this way: what is the relationship between the three clauses? Right. I think that way the relationship and sequence between the three clauses. Yeah.
Yeah, I have two questions.
Yeah.
One is the first half of the first pasuk it says a house will be built with wisdom, and understanding will establish it, right? So now in the house, I guess my question is like, why is it necessary to have the second pasuk? Because if the house is built with wisdom, like you think, well, the rooms would be built with wisdom too, or some form of that. So like,
Okay.
what is the second half is really adding?
Okay, yeah. So I think I'm going to add that onto Yaakov's question here, which is that how does each clause modify or add to the previous clauses? Yeah, actually, that's actually a better way to say sequence, right? In other words, like whatever the Chochmah establishes is somehow being augmented by these other things. Yeah, Ezra?
Why does it have to emphasize that the rooms are gonna be filled with like precious, pleasing wealth, as opposed to just wealth?
I think we got that one already. Why? What is Hon Yaakov
sorry.
Naim is supposed to please? Yeah. Please go.
Where's the Daas Darim is Darim? What is that modifying? Is it
So you have to read it as and with Das, Chadarim Yamalu, rooms will be filled. Kol Hon Yaakov Naim with all.
Darim is rooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like a cheder.
Okay.
Like a Chabad cheder. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Is Das a general thing, or is it like does it need context for you to know like if it's good Das, or is Das a general like information?
Right. So part of our question is going to be what is Das? Here it is either being used neutrally or for good, seemingly. Yeah. Okay.
There was a question.
I'm going to ask this question just because I have a feeling, I haven't seen the meforshim yet, but I have a feeling that the meforshim are going to, some of them are going to comment on this. Is this connected to the previous dozen psukim? Okay, because we've seen pretty much all of the psukim that we've seen, psukim, all the psukim we've seen for the last half parak have been advice to the son, right? And so is this a new section or is this connected? And again, and if so, how? Yeah.
Do we ask what's the subject of the pasuk?
We can ask that. Ryan Moskowitz's favorite question. What is the subject of the pasuk? What?
What's that mean?
Okay, so Rabbi Moskowitz always, we have certain questions that we always try to ask, which is like the audience and the practical thing. Rabbi Moskowitz's go-to question was, what's the subject? And I see the utility of that, but in my mind, it didn't rise to like a question you always have to ask. He felt that if you ask that question, it forces you into a greater level of clarity, which often it does. For example, my favorite example of this is one that we did. I forgot when we did this. I think it came up.
What do you mean by subject though?
I'll show you.
What are we talking about?
Yeah. I forgot to check my computer speed this morning and clean it up. Okay. Sorry, this is taking so long.
Like the main topic.
22:13. Amar Atzel Ari Bachutz Pesach Rechovos Eretzeach. The lazy person says, a lion is outside, I will be murdered in the streets. Okay, yeah. So when you first look at this pasuk, then you might be tempted to think that the subject is laziness. Okay, and there are mefarshim who learn this as laziness, but when Rabbi Moskowitz and I learned it one time, then we ended up realizing that the subject of the pasuk is really about rationalization, and how this, obviously this is one of these hyperbole psukim where the lazy person takes some far-fetched incident that just never happens. Like you never, even back then in a city, you don't get murdered by a lion, and that's also not a reason for you to not go out. That'd be the equivalent of saying like, I don't want to go out because a plane might crash into me. Like there are disasters that can happen, but like not a plane crashing into you. And so we learned that the pasuk was really about rationalization. And depending, and let's say like we were learning this together and like we were arguing about that could bring out nuances here, so here I'm kind of walking in with the assumption that this is essentially about Chochmah, Bina, and Daas, but maybe you'll tell me, no, it's really about like wealth building strategies. Like I'm saying it's about Chochmah, Bina, and Daas, and it's just using wealth building strategies to point to the definitions, but maybe you'll say it's about wealth building strategies and this is being presupposed. Yeah.
Well, I would have thought that the subject is actually what a home is.
Okay, there's another one also, right?
And these are defining.
Okay, it could be levels of home. Yeah. Yeah, Yaakov.
Why is it cold? calling back over dime, or is that just like a rhetorical?
Sure, I'm going to add that to the question about the stam, and why kol? What does that? Yeah, I'll just say, what does that add? What does kol add? What does kol add?
Maybe you could add this question as a second question.
Yeah.
Like, what are rooms in this context?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have that?
No,
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is the third question. Yeah. Why specify rooms? And we also didn't ask the question of what does it mean to establish the bias? What does it mean to establish the bias? And how does one do this through Tevunah?
Put two walls on top.
Okay. So, okay, it does seem like I'm reading the room here. It does seem like maybe some of you are learning this to be more about the emphasis being on the bias and the wealth than on defining the three terms, which is good because I was learning it more about the three terms. Okay, but whatever. We'll.
What do you want?
I was learning that this is where this is one of the places where he is actually defining Chochmah, Tevunah, and Daas, and that's the purpose of the pasuk. But I'm hearing that some people's intuition seems to be going that the emphasis is on really the the bias and the wealth.
I feel like for me, if I'm looking at it as an equation,
Yeah.
that what is a bias, it's these things, then it can also be telling us, therefore, what is
Right. It could definitely be that. I have to read something from the Rambam really quickly, not as to get the ideas, but as a word of warning. So this is a good Rambam to have in your back pocket. I remember Pesach reading this to me in my first year of yeshiva when I asked him, what's the difference between Daas and Tevunah? And there is a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says, Im ein Daas ein Tevunah. Anyone know which parak that's in? Isaac? Yeah. Third? Let's see. It's part of a series. In this, in that, in this, in that. Yeah. I'm just gonna search. Probably. I'll explain why I'm reading this afterwards, because even though I'm not using it. Well, I'm reading it because it might help. Maybe something will light up this time, but I'm reading it more as a word of warning. Okay, this is in Avos. Oh, while I'm looking for this, epic thing happened over the winter break. Jesse Fishbein met with Rabbi Novetsky and his wife on Torah. Like she actually went there. And for those who don't know, this is still loading. Jesse has been writing the translation of the Bechor Shor. And so she's translated all of Shemos and she's into Vayikra now. And what she does, her system is that's a different one. Is she? Oh no, even more problems. She translates like 95%, and then if she doesn't understand one of them, then she highlights it in yellow. And Rabbi Novetsky and his chavrusa have a chavrusa in yellows, where they sit down and then they like tackle all of the problems that she has. And she says that, and it works out for both of them because she says she doesn't mind doing mindless translations, but like she's not going to invest the time in like doing all the work, and like it highlights the things for them that are like the difficult translations, and so it works out. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then he gave them a Mishnah Torah, actually a lot Mishnah Torah as a gift, bar mitzvah gift for Jack. So that's nice. Yeah. Okay. Gimel Yud Zayin in that count. So Im Ein. This is in the Im Ein one. Im Ein. Where is it in here? You were right, Yaakov. It was in 3. I just missed it. See, I can't even find it here. Oh, here we go. Here it's in 20. Im ein Torah in derech eretz, im ein derech eretz in Torah. Im ein Chochmah in yira, im ein yira in Chochmah. Im ein Daas in bina, im ein bina in Daas. Okay, so the Rambam says, I'm just going to read this short thing here. So the intent in the entire Mishnah is that each one of these things assists the existence of the other one and completes it. Okay, so they're like interdependent in that way. Okay, aval devarav bebina uvadas hena inyan zeh philosophy dak ma'od. The words here about bina and das is a very subtle or nuanced philosophical concept. I'm going to mention it, and I'm Ramam, and I'm going to rely on the people who have already learned about this. Now, listen to this in the list of top five most difficult Ramams to understand. This is either 2 or 1. Okay, in my book. This dea, I'm not going to translate it because this dea that is acquired by us, and we seek it out, we acquire it. Rochesh is another word for acquiring. Ina ella hasagasenu as hamuskalos she'anu masikim is nothing other than the concepts that we grasp. O bekach she'anu mavdilim es hatzura v'yodim osa, either by separating the form and knowing it, or by grasping the forms that are separate in their existence without them becoming for us seichel. Elahim b'mitziusam seichel, but they in their own existence are seichel. V'hasaga zo, and this apprehension, he hanikras bina, is called bina. He hadaas, it is the daas. Uvadas gam naskil, and with das we also are naskil. We get seichel. Vis afshar lanu lahasig mash efshar lahasig, and it becomes possible for us to apprehend that which we apprehend. Ukilu amar, and it's as if it said, im lo nasig muskal ein lanu seichel, that if we don't grasp a concept, then we don't have seichel. V'im lo yehe lanu seichel lo nasig muskal, and if we don't have intelligence, we cannot grasp a concept. Lefisha b'seichel nasigehu, because with seichel we grasp it. V'havanas davar zeh kasha, and understanding this is difficult. Even from books that are written about this, mikan, and all the more so from here. We're just giving you like a little guidance. Okay, so that's you think you're following the Rambam for a certain point, and then he's just like, so the reason I'm reading this is as a word of warning, that clearly there must be some level of understanding this that Shlomo Melech holds is within our grasp, whatever grasp means. But at the same time, these are very, very deep epistemological concepts, right? Or whatever, not cognitive psychology, whatever, cognition, right? The concepts of cognition. And so whatever understanding we emerge from here, we should realize that like there's a lot more depth there, even to the point where like the Rambam himself, you rarely see the Rambam say that a subject is difficult, except in like Ma'aser Bereishis and Ma'aser Merkava. Here he's saying it's very difficult and it's very nuanced. And so I just don't want us to walk away with the notion that like, we fully get these things. Okay, so let's try to tackle them now. And I think we should start, whatever the subject of the pasuk is, let's start with understanding these 3 stages of building a house: building, establishing, and then filling the rooms with wealth. And then from there, see if we could extrapolate. Yeah.
Aren't those 2 different pursuits? I was kind of thinking asking this as a question, but building a house is not the same thing as acquiring wealth or filling rooms.
Well, it depends on how you define house, because if you're defining the house as an architectural structure, then this is not on a continuum. But what would be the other way? I guess one other way to say building a house here.
Building a storehouse, like to hold the wealth.
Okay, you could say that. I was thinking. Like when we say building a bayis ne'eman b'Yisrael, we don't mean like a sturdy house, right? Like we mean like the entire. And we also don't just mean. Okay, but whatever. We mean a family, okay? But like a household, what was that?
From like an established area, like.
Well, they used to have a subject that you could take in high school called home economics, right? Or household economics. A home is or household income, right? Household income is probably the best way that we have. So there's like the way I would see this is. There is like, building an initial dwelling that doesn't necessarily have permanence or stability. And by dwelling, I mean both the physical house and like the ability to maintain it. Establishing it means a certain level of wealth where you can like keep it going. And, and then there's like fantastical wealth. So like, that's kind of how I'm seeing it, of like 3 levels of wealth. There's like bare minimum, where it's not even certain that you're going to be able to like keep it going. And then there's like established, and then there's like more. And again, I'm also kind of getting this through the mashal with Hashem, that building the earth and then the heavens and then the bounty of the heavens, being a thing. Yeah, David.
Just a question from what's not here.
Yeah, I'll put both of these on.
If we're going through like the process, or like we're talking about the different stages of house building here.
Yeah.
I mean, there are prior steps like of like excavating area or like getting the plot of land or what.
Yeah.
So within like starting in the middle here, is there a reason why we start partway through? Like these other, so like do not need then any other.
Yeah, so I think that is another okay, so first of all, it just could be the this is just a proverb style. Like you don't go into all these details when you go into a proverb, like an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, technically you first have to go to the grocery store and buy an apple or pick one off the tree. So why isn't that in the mashal? Because that's not the point, Also, I think that because the emphasis here is not on the architectural construction of the house, again, that's the way I'm learning. I'm not saying that you can't learn it the other way, but I think it's much more on like, household. Yeah. So it wouldn't be necessary to go into like the nitty gritties. Yeah.
I normally wouldn't like make this reference because I feel like usually it's not this the theme, but this one I might venture. So a lot of like
be adventurous,
like Lurianic stuff.
I knew you were gonna go to Spiros. Yeah, no.
Not Spiros.
Yeah.
Although I mean,
yeah.
But like the way they describe Shekhinah.
Yeah.
And I only said it because you mentioned like dwelling.
Yeah.
Is like a whole. There's a building process and there's like these different stages and essentially
right.
And it's made up of these like it's like there's a metaphysical concept of like Bina and Chochmah that makes up this.
So I haven't looked at Rashi yet, but this is the type of thing where you can easily see either Rashi or the Gra saying that this is talking about the base of Mikdash, the Makom Shekhinah. I wouldn't be surprised if we encounter someone who says that. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. It's not definitely not shot. Yeah.
Right. It's not fully thought out.
Sure.
But I feel like something needs to be said at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say that there's when you could have Chochmah to just like I'm gonna use it as building a family.
Yeah.
Right. Now you can get married and like with the basic Chochmah that you have and like that's it, and like you can live your life raising a family and attempting to pass more knowledge and information to your kids.
Yeah.
Right. That's like the basic level.
Yeah.
Then you have once a higher level, which is like, okay, you get married, you have kids, but now like you can build on that with further information, further stuff that can excel that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have, and I want to say, I don't know why, it's more of like an intuition. Maybe like the rooms is like your children passing down the Masorah.
Mm-hmm.
To their kids.
Okay, so if you're going to take the metaphorical way, then that seems like a good possibility. I want to stress we need to focus on the literal interpretation first. Okay, yeah. Otherwise, we're just going to fly off into metaphor, and it's going to be speculative. Let me give you a hint, just because I don't know where we're going, but a hint based on what we've talked about before, which is what is the difference between Chochmah and Tevunah? That I think we have talked about this year. Yeah.
We've said that Chochmah is using the knowledge you have to take out an idea.
Okay.
And then Tevunah is like to be made in dollar.
Right. So Chochmah is to put it in Rashi's terms. I'll quote our sources again because we should definitely see these sources. It's interesting actually. There's two places where you can find this. One in Mishlei, and then one not in this week's parsha, but in Moshe Rabbeinu's review of this week's parsha, in Dvarim. All right. So first of all, first place is in Rashi in the beginning of Mishlei, where he says, Yishma Chacham Yosef Lekach v'Navon Takbulas Yikneh. The Chacham will hear and will increase his learning, and the Navon will acquire strategies. And Rashi says, Chacham is a Bal Shmua. The Chacham is someone who has heard knowledge, who has received knowledge. Navon is Musaf al Chacham. He's in addition to the Chacham. Sheyodea lahavin davar mitoch davar. He can derive through understanding one thing from another. Umosif al shmuas, and he can add to his to what he has heard. Okay, so Chochmah is received, and Tevunah requires a certain type of creativity in being able to derive from knowledge you have. And then the other place is in I'm pretty sure it's not in this week's parsha is Yisro, and Yisro talks to Moshe Rabbeinu about appointing the judges. But I think the Rashi I'm looking for is in the beginning of Devarim. Yeah, I think so. Havu lechem anashim chachamim unvonim viduim l'shivtechem. So don't think that you're doing this Daas, but chachamim and nevonim. And Rashi there gives the mashal. I think this is what I read in the shiur last time. Chachamim is, what does ksufim mean? Let's see the English here. Chachamim, ksufim. Oh, I guess the English doesn't say. Oh, because this is from a manuscript. Yeah, all right, fine. So I don't know what ksufim means. Nevonim, but here's going to explain it. Mevinim davar mitov davar. Sorry, nevonim is understanding one thing from another. Zohi sheshal Arios es Rabbi Yossi. This is what Arios asked Rabbi Yossi. Ma bin chachamim nevonim. What is the difference between chachamim and nevonim? Chacham dome l'shulchani ashir. Chacham is comparable to a rich shulchani, is like a money changer who sits at a table. Kishemevin lo dinarim liros roeh. When they bring him coins to examine, then he examines them and he gets money. When they don't bring him, Yoshev to, he sits and does nothing. Navon, but a navon is dome l'shuchani tagar. He's comparable to a merchant money changer. Kishemevin liros, when they bring him to see, he sees the coins. Kishemevin, and when they don't bring it to him, who machazer or maybe he goes out and brings it in on his own. So this is why another way I like to characterize the difference is a chacham is a dependent learner and a navon is an independent learner, that he can go out and seek knowledge on his own and derive new things based on what he's known in the past. So I don't usually bring in definitions this early, but because we talked about this earlier in the year, then and this is like basic Mishlei, then I feel like it's not wrong to bring it in now.
So,
yeah,
it's interesting. Like up until this pasuk, I never really had to ask this question.
Yeah.
But what are the parameters for a literal interpretation right now? Because like I feel like with this specific pasuk, like I don't know where to draw the line.
Right.
With literal, is it literal like okay? Is literal building the structure of the house?
Right. So
or is it like I don't know.
So my approach for literal is you go as literal as possible. Okay, and then you only go non-literal like when you're forced to. So that's why I'm saying your assumption is not bad, that this is about the physical structure. But my intuition is going one level up of that, which is about like the household as like a unit of like economy, like as a smallest economy,
like what like
society,
like
society, yeah, like and the reason why my intuition is going there is because of the filling it with wealth. Like if this is just about how to build a house, so if it said with Chochmah you build a house, with Tevunah you establish it, and with Daas you build additional rooms, then I would be like locked into that. But once you're going into filling the house with wealth, to me, then that's not adding
interactions in the system of what's going on.
Exactly, it's not adding to the physical structure, but you're adding to your assets. Right. Like your assets. That's why I would say it's there.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a partial approach.
Sure.
Where the house might be an architectural house, and so are not seriously differentiating between Chochmah and Tevunah and Daas.
Okay.
And it's kind of saying that you can't build a house without Chochmah.
Okay.
I mean, you can have like a ramshackle thing that's not going to last, but generally speaking, if you build a house, there's a process. Like you hire a contractor, you hire an architect.
Yeah.
Like to get the house, you have to use Chochmah.
Okay.
And the first pasuk is kind of providing like a moser for someone who's interested in filling his house with precious wealth, and saying, just like you have to use Chochmah to build your house. If you want to achieve filling rooms of wealth, you also have to use.
Okay, that's a good approach. Let me just talk it out a little bit more, which is that there are areas where everyone recognizes that you need Chochmah for, right? And like again, like people know that you can't just. No one goes to Lowe's and just buys planks and then says, "I'm going to make a house," without any, or no one says that, like, if someone has some sort of like a disease, I'm going to do surgery. I'm just going to cut them open and fix it. Like they realize that medicine requires Chochmah and architecture requires Chochmah. But then there are other areas like getting rich, where people think that you could just find like a magical solution, of just, I'm going to go just like make the money, and what you're saying is that this is like, it's funny. This is actually a parallel to the previous pasuk that we did last week, because, let me talk about this idea. This is saying that you need to, just like you need to build a Chochmah, build a house with Chochmah and Tevunah, so too the only way to make wealth is with knowledge. That's what you're saying? And this is like last week's pasukim, where we said that you see these guys who are thieves and rich thieves, and you think that you can have all that glory and glamour without an internal corruption. And no, you can't. Is if you want that type of life, you're going to have to be the type of person who's always talking about violence and mischief and like corrupting yourself to get that. So it's a similar like move that it's making, connecting the results to the internal process that produces it. Yeah.
So kind of
I like that.
Transition, like starting with this literal and then going to like an application of like what's, I guess, the notional.
Okay.
So physically, when you want to build a home, you want to start with a blueprint.
Yeah.
But if you look at blueprints, they don't come with a super detailed descriptions of the building materials and how to hammer the thing. It's like it's implied that you're gonna like that. You're gonna have to like it's gonna come with some other knowledge.
Yeah.
And so there's like I think from like learning a little bit about like the differences like of the brain, like and how it operates. There's a difference between comprehension and apprehension.
Okay.
And that comprehension is like how you were describing, sort of passively but understanding, receiving information.
Yeah.
And understand. Oh, I see. But then apprehension is knowing how to like when you apprehend something, how to manipulate it and do something with it. So once you go from the blueprint of the plan, it's like okay, but now how do you actually implement this?
Yeah. Okay, I like your way of thinking. That's kind of how I would like to. Chochmah is going to be strict application because again, if we take Chochmah in the way that Rashi was saying, it's just taking what you know and just like kind of like a unsophisticated following of rules.
Right.
Whereas Tevunah, however we understand Tevunah, I think we're going to agree that it's going to be much more. I mean, we call it understanding, comprehension. There's going to be some sort of like
real world
understanding how it works, not just that it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. That's a good start off. Did you have something, Ezra?
I was just curious what Yiskanan meant, like, those like literal.
Yeah, so let me actually just click on the BDB here for that also. Let's go back to our parak, which is, where are we? 24. Thank you. Yiskanan. Oh, and then I'll call an R and then we'll stop because we're already over time. This to become firm or established, fixed, secure, determined, directed, aright, prepared, be ready, all these other things. Yeah.
All right, yeah. So I feel like I'm combining what Fiske and Yaakov were saying.
Okay.
Okay. So if we're not taking it to mean like building wealth.
Yeah.
Like I think there are 3 stages.
Yeah.
And that there's there's the idea stage, and then there's like the planning stage, and then there's like the execution stage.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that the idea it just requires like a basic thought of like what needs, like what can we provide.
Yeah.
And then there's another level of okay, now that we have this idea, like what can we do to implement it such that it occurs.
Yeah.
It's like a more of a plan.
Yeah.
Which will result in the execution,
Right.
Which will kind of bring
Okay.
it down.
All right. I think that's a good way of thinking about it. And what I would really like to get is then the third stage, right? I think that's what we need to think about, of like this guy who has this minimalistic house, even if it's established, is not wealthy. Is not like fabulously wealthy, but Daas is going to get him there. So we need to figure out what Daas is. So let's, so just to summarize the one idea we got for today, which again, I really like, it's a very Metzudas David-like approach because he's not, I'm guessing Metzudas David is not going to go in and define the difference between Chochmah, Tevunah, and Daas. So what's the main message we get if we take the terms interchangeably? It's that don't think, just like you can't build a house without Chochmah, don't think that you can get rich without Chochmah, and if you do, and if you point to some guy who does, that's going to be a fluke. That's not a plan. Okay. Like, you can't plan on winning the lottery. All right, let's stop here for today. And I also have to say something.